Michelle. Obviously, you know what this stuff was all about, right? It's not a surprise that we showed up tonight.
Almost overnight, she went from a possible witness to a person of interest in the case of a missing mom of 5 from New Canaan.
We see state police, New Canaan police, searching downtown Hartford.
So what's that about? Why is the scene moved to Hartford?
You need to tell us what you know about Jennifer's murder and Forrest Dulos.
The girlfriend in the middle of a bitter and brutal divorce battle.
Stuff you were throwing out, we have. And it's all Jennifer. It belongs to Jennifer. Do you understand?
Turned high-profile murder investigation.
Guys, what happened to Jennifer, Michelle? You're gonna do the right thing, Michelle?
We're taking you inside the trial of Michelle Troconis.
And thanks for joining us once again for Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. I'm Shannon Miller. We're getting you ready for another full day of testimony as you take a live look here outside of Stamford Superior Court. Let's get you caught up on the trial so far. It was a day full of dramatic testimony and a first-hand account of the crumbling Dulos marriage from Jennifer's nanny, Lauren Almeida, as she walked the jury through the stages of their relationship, that affair that sparked a bitter divorce battle, and what happened the day Jennifer disappeared. We'll take you through her testimony piece by piece. And a surprising development as the judge had to dismiss an alternate juror for comments made in an elevator during an earlier court recess. Court marshal who saw what happened testified that the alternate juror said, quote, "We love you," to a member of the state prosecutor team. Another juror witnessed this, but the judge is allowing them to remain. That jury is now down to 6 regular jurors and 4 alternates. We got the first piece of physical evidence presented to the jury so far during this trial, Forrest Dulos' cell phone. That was seized when he first met with the New Canaan Police Department following Jennifer's disappearance. My colleague Kevin Geis following all the testimony for us as he joins us once again from Stamford Superior Court. Kevin, what was this evidence all about?
Yeah, Shannon, ultimately that phone was seized and processed by the Fairfield Police Department for things like photos and messages as well as location data. Now, the prosecution seems to be slowly moving toward the Albany Avenue surveillance video that we know that investigators were ultimately able to get. Following the introduction of Forrest Dulos' phone, New Canaan Detective Thomas Patton testified he brought it to the Fairfield Police Department for processing. He said investigators pulled messages, photos, and location data from his phone. There was an objection to the testimony about what was pulled off of the phone because Patton was not the one to do it, but he was present. He ultimately was allowed to testify to some of the location data, but the judge ultimately shut down the line of questioning. Now, Patton's testimony was quick, but we were able to establish that there was location data pulled from the phone. Again, the prosecution seems to be starting to move toward that video that was taken on Albany Avenue, where we see Forrest Dulos disposing of what later would become evidence in some trash bins along the road. Patton is not expected to be back today. Shannon.
Boy, Kevin, if that cell phone could talk. I want to move now to defense attorney John Schoenhorn, who's been saying, of course, throughout all this, when exactly will we start hearing about why Michelle Troconis is facing the charges that she's facing? It looks like we're going to start seeing that very soon.
Absolutely. I would imagine that will likely begin to sort of connect Michelle Troconis into this entire trial. I would expect that there will continue to be more objections, but I would imagine prosecutors are slowly building the case for Michelle Troconis, how she was involved, how long she's been involved, and how she was sort of in a relationship with Forrest leading up to the presumed murder.
All right, Kevin, stay with us. I want to talk to you later on about the Dulos nanny's testimony. Almeida and a friend of Jennifer Dulos were the ones who reported Jennifer missing the night of May 24th, 2019. It happened after the nanny found out Jennifer never went to her scheduled appointments in New York City and never showed up at her mother's house to pick up her children for an orthodontist appointment.
Did Jennifer meet you at the orthodontist?
No, she didn't.
How were you feeling at this time?
Really bad. The second I called Jennifer, it's like my stomach just sank because she never not answered her phone. So I was really hopeful that she just got caught up with meetings and she was going to be there. And so when she wasn't there, I just came, I was shocked, but also like, okay, I have the 4 kids in front of me. I don't know what to do. So I just put them into their appointments and I I just walked outside and I started to call people that could have heard from Jennifer.
Kevin, Lauren Almeida worked for Jennifer for many years. She considered Jennifer a friend as well. And it's clear she went through a lot of great lengths to try to find her in those early hours, even getting a hold of Jennifer's iPad with that Google Calendar on it to try to find out where that appointment was that Jennifer went to that day and going to the office.
Absolutely. Almeida testified at sort of great length about what she went through on that first day. She had picked up the kids. She was expecting to see Jennifer in New York later on. Of course, when she was not there, you can sort of get the emotion that she was testifying to about sort of her concern. She started contacting friends. She was working with her own mom. Her mom suggested she start calling different area hospitals to make sure she wasn't in a car accident, because Jennifer Dulos had previously been in a pretty serious car accident that Almeida testified to as well. So you sort of walk through the lengths that Almeida was going through just to try to locate her. Of course, she testified that this was extremely strange and out of the ordinary for Jennifer. She never didn't pick up her phone. She always responded to text messages. So you sort of began to see a little bit of the emotion heighten in Almeida as she was testifying to her concerns.
You could feel the weight of that moment. We learned for the first time yesterday that Almeida picked up the kids from school in New Canaan and then brought them home for lunch that day. That's just hours after investigators say Jennifer was murdered inside that home. When the nanny entered the Wells Lane property that morning through the garage, she testified she didn't notice any blood-like stains later found by police. But she did see something strange when she went into the kitchen, including Jennifer's purse. She thought Jennifer would have taken it with her to appointments in New York, but then figured maybe she just grabbed her wallet and phone and left the purse there on the floor. Now, another thing that she noticed, about 10 missing paper towel rolls she had just replaced the day before.
Yeah, so the paper towel roll was empty, so I went in the pantry to go grab another one and noticed that there were only 2 rolls of paper towels left, which was odd to me because the night before I just put 12 rolls in there. But again, I thought maybe the kids spilled something and they used a lot of paper towels.
Now, Almeida was also shown photos of the garage taken by state police. She testified that when she cleaned the garage 2 days before, some camping pillows were on these racks you see here where they stored equipment. But then they were missing in these photos. We later heard about a bloody pillow found in the evidence allegedly dumped on Albany Avenue in Hartford. Almeida also testified that a bucket of cleaning supplies was typically stored in the garage, but in state police photos, that bucket was missing. Now, Almeida testified that after Jennifer went missing, Fotis Dulos called her that night. Here's what happened.
He called me and I called the police because I wasn't sure what to do. And they told me that he's not a suspect, so you should talk to him because I have his kids. And so I decided just to call him back because I didn't want to anticipate waiting for the phone call. And so I spoke to him and it was a very weird conversation. He asked how the kids were doing, but didn't talk about Jennifer or really what was going on, just saying, oh, this is really weird, and immediately went into that he had a supervised visitation that Saturday. I think because it was a Memorial Day weekend, so he had a day, it was a special thing, and that I needed to make sure that I left New York early enough that I got the kids to him to New Canaan for his supervised visit. And he was just very adamant, Lauren, you have to make sure that they're there, they need me, you need to bring them to me, be early. And then the conversation ended. Yes.
Now, the jury was also shown these text messages between Fotis Dulos and the nanny where he asked about the kids. She gave short answers and told the court she eventually stopped responding to Fotis. She also testified that Fotis showed up at Gloria Farber's New York apartment, and then they called police. Now, at that point, Kevin, she did not really have a good relationship with Fotis Dulos even before Jennifer went missing. Fotis had, in the months before, become increasingly aggressive toward the nanny.
Right. Before the divorce, Almeida had a decent relationship with Fotis Dulos. She worked with Fotis Dulos. She considered him a mentor. But after the divorce, she had a few run-ins at various points. She refused to bring the kids for visitations to Farmington because of interaction she had with Fotis Dulos. She talked about an interaction she had with Fotis Dulos inside this courthouse as well. At one point, he approached her. He was yelling at her, accusing her of kidnapping his kids. So leading up to the instance where Jennifer Dulos disappeared, their relationship was definitely tense and rocky. So she had no intention. She testified and made very clear she had no intention of letting Fotis Dulos anywhere near those children after Jennifer disappeared.
And in court testimony, we heard these moments where Fotis would get upset and then retreat and kind of remain calm. That was a tendency he had when he had these interactions with her. One of the most dramatic moments from Tuesday was when Almeida pointed out Troconis in the courtroom. The next day, she got to explain how she met Michelle Troconis on a family vacation back in 2017.
Can you describe your interactions with the defendant at the ski club for the jury?
Yeah, so Fotis introduced her as a friend, and she was nice. She was with Fotis a lot, like they'd go on the boat to ski, but there was one time I had a conversation with her when we were underneath the little tent where you can kind of just hang out. I remember the conversation. She was telling me she just got back from Colorado. She was looking at schools to go for her daughter to go to because her daughter was a very good snow skier, so she wanted her to, I think, get better or more opportunities there, I guess. But she was friendly.
When you interacted with the defendant, what language did you speak to her in?
English.
Did she have any trouble communicating with you in English when you spoke with her?
No.
Now, Almeida says it appeared that some of the Dulos children had met Troconis before that trip, even calling her Michi and hugging her when they saw her. So, Kevin, why is the prosecution asking about whether Troconis was able to communicate in English?
This dates back a little bit. So the part of the defense's strategy is proving that Michelle Troconis has sort of a language barrier. That'll go into some of the interviews that she later did with investigators following her arrest. But prosecutors are just pointing out that she had no problem communicating in English with the Dulos children. And we'll sort of continue to watch this language barrier come up a few times, especially once we get to some of the interviews that Troconis did with investigators following her arrest in June.
Important to note that Michelle Troconis is wearing an earpiece where she can hear a translator throughout this process. It was shortly after that trip that Jennifer told Almeida she had proof Fotis Dulos was having an affair. And Nanny testified initially. Jennifer said she wanted it to be as civil as possible, but the situation went downhill quickly and escalated to threats, arguments, and Jennifer leaving in secret. There were two conflicts that Nanny testified about witnessing, including one where Fotis was allegedly chasing Jennifer with a piece of paper. She says that argument took place at the home at 4 Jefferson Crossing in Farmington. Here's what she had to say about another frightening moment between Fotis and Jennifer that happened while she was there with the kids.
So I was in one of the kids' rooms and we were just doing a puzzle together where all of a sudden, like, we started to hear screaming and Jennifer ran through the bedroom door. I don't believe that she knew that we were in there, but she ran through the door. Fotis was yelling. I'm not sure what he was yelling. And she closed the door behind her and pushed her body up against the door. And he was trying to get in. And she, I mean, her face was just, she was terrified. And she saw that myself and her daughter were there. And to be honest, I kind of froze because I didn't know what to do. And then when he pushed the door more, he saw that his daughter and myself were in there. And his demeanor totally changed. He went from yelling to like, Jennifer, I just want to talk, like very soft-spoken. It was so weird. And so eventually he walked away because myself and her daughter were there. She told me she needed to get out of the house. And so she left me with the kids and she just got in the car and I think she just went down the street to really just like kind of catch her breath.
Now, within the next month, Jennifer decided to move out of the Jefferson Crossing home, and Almeida made her own decision to go with Jennifer and the kids.
Yeah, over the next few weeks, things were changing, and so her plan changed. And she asked me to go with her when she was planning to move, and I agreed.
Why did you decide to go with her?
Because she was my friend, and I trusted her, and I wanted to help her.
So the nanny continues to testify that Jennifer wasn't just her boss, but also her friend. Kevin, this testimony really struck me. It seems like she really loved and cared for Jennifer, again, both as an employer, but also a trusted friend.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to point out that she's continued to stay with the kids even to this point. The prosecutors pointed out at the end of her testimony that she's still living with the children to this day. So she clearly cares for the family. At the time, she cared about Jennifer, and that's something that the prosecution really wanted to point out to the jury, who throughout the entire testimony really sort of were on the edge of their seats. Of course, they've gone through all the data, they've gone through some of what investigators were collecting, but when that nanny took the stand, they were really leaning in. They were definitely feeling as though they wanted to hear every single thing that she had to say.
And that brings us now, Kevin, to the day in June when Jennifer secretly left Jefferson Crossing with the children. Here's how the nanny described that.
That was the day that Jennifer planned for us to leave for Jefferson.
And when you say Jennifer planned for us to leave Fort Jefferson, who are you referring to?
The 5 kids, Jennifer, and I was helping her along.
Was Mr. Dulos aware that you were going to be leaving Fort Jefferson?
No.
What was the plan to leave Fort Jefferson without Mr. Dulos becoming aware?
The plan was she told him that we were all going to be visiting her father's grave, and we were going to New York. We went to New York often because that's where Jennifer's parents were, and we left like that afternoon, I believe, and we just got in the car, and the plan was to stay at a hotel that we've never stayed in before. So we stayed at the Mandarin Oriental in the city, and Jennifer hired an armed bodyguard to be outside of her room because she was afraid, because her plan was to file for divorce once we were in the city in the hotel.
Did you ever hear from Mr. Dulos on June 19, 2017?
Yes.
How did you hear from him?
He called me a bunch that evening.
Did you ever answer the phone?
No, I didn't.
Did he leave any voicemails?
Yes.
What did he say on the voicemail?
He accused me of kidnapping their kids, and that he was going to call the police, which he did.
Now, eventually, supervised visitation was worked out in the contentious divorce proceedings. Kevin, domestic violence experts say the most dangerous time for a partner is when they decide to make that separation, that moment to leave that partner. Again, hearing about this secret plot for Jennifer to leave with the kids, the armed bodyguard, this testimony had me on the edge of my seat because I think it really captured the intensity of that moment. Do you think that the jury got a sense of just how frightened Jennifer was in this moment?
Absolutely. As previously mentioned, I mean, the jury throughout the entire testimony, they seemed to be hanging on every single word that Lauren Almeida had to offer. They were definitely interested in everything she had to say because, again, prior to that, they'd really been focused more on data and sort of physical evidence, pictures, videos. But at this point, they really sort of got a little bit of a taste of emotion, especially dating back to the entire divorce proceedings.
All right, Kevin Geist, live for us once again outside Stamford Superior Court. We always appreciate your coverage and insight. Much more to come on Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. We are going next to dig into the testimony about the contentious divorce, what it could mean moving forward. Our expert attorney Jim Bergen joins us next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. We are joined once again by one of our legal analysts for the case, defense attorney Jim Bergen. Jim, thanks so much for joining us once again. You told me this is compelling testimony that we heard yesterday. For the first time, those jurors again are learning about this contentious divorce between Jennifer and Fotis, and the state even telling the judge that this could be a possible motivator for Fotis for murdering Jennifer. So what is the impact of introducing this divorce to the jury?
It's very powerful because this is the core of what the whole case is about, and it actually relates very much to Michelle Troconis because the jury is now learning about all the personalities, including Michelle. What was most stirring to me was when he's pushing his way into the room and immediately switches from being violent and aggressive to having a soft voice. And, you know, also what was revealed yesterday during cross-examination was that when Jennifer started dating him, he was married. So the whole thing is like the jury's got to sort all this stuff out because ultimately their job is what was going on in Michelle's mind, and we see how manipulative and clever and quick to switch Fotis is.
And we just saw moments ago Michelle Troconis making her way into Stamford Superior Court this morning, and the jury learning those details about Jennifer again, and that, you know, she had the suspicion that this affair was going on. Lauren Almeida, the nanny, revealing more details about that affair. The big question here, though, is how does the divorce between Jennifer and Michelle have anything to do? Forgive me, the divorce between Fotis and Jennifer have anything to do with Michelle. We don't know yet what Fotis has told Michelle about this divorce. Again, you talked about really how much had he shared with Michelle up to this point?
Well, the prosecutors and the defense lawyers have to be careful here. They may have their own narrative in mind, but the jurors have to compare what they're learning as history is being recreated with their own life's experience. So the prosecutors, for example, may want to overlay that this is that other woman who broke up a marriage, but jurors may have a lot of experience or knowledge of divorces and realize everyone is unique. Nobody's on their best behavior except when they're with somebody new. That's where they're on their best behavior.
Yeah.
So the idea that she, created this divorce when in fact Jennifer started up with Fotis, well, he was married to someone else. It's just like, yeah, the world is chaotic.
And here's what I'm interested in seeing. Again, it's still to be told if Michelle Troconis will take the stand, but if any of her family members do, I'll be interested to hear if John Schoenhorn asks, what was Fotis telling you about this divorce? That it was amicable, that, it was on the verge of being completed. So those are the things I want to hear about exactly what Fotis was telling Michelle about this divorce, if he was kind of painting a different picture for her. Lauren Almeida tells the jury she told police and called police that night because Jennifer was missing. It was not like her to not answer her phone calls. She knew that she was going through this contentious divorce and that Fotis Dulos had a gun. Now, the judge, quick to say we cannot mention that before the jury. So can you explain that part of that standard where once you start to bring in this idea that someone owns a gun, how that could potentially paint a different picture in the minds of a jury?
Well, sure. Everybody has their own feelings about guns. I abhor them because I've seen so much harm they've done. And some jurors are going to be alarmed. On the other hand, there's a lot of people that have guns. And there is no evidence in this case that he ever used the gun on Jennifer. So all it does is just insert something that just doesn't belong. The judge has been very good. He's patient, and he knows the rules. And you have to keep things into what's relevant. The jury's got enough to sort out without throwing in a wrench of a gun. Right. And I'm not even sure the prosecutors anticipated that, but it really had no place.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was that problematic.
He basically told the jury, forget that you heard that part about the gun. All right, coming up, more inside the trial of Michelle Troconis. We will talk with Jim about more of your takeaways from the trial so far. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm joined once again by attorney Jim Bergen, one of our legal analysts. Jim, we're now 1 week into the trial. We had a couple days off there with the holiday, but I just got to ask you, what's your takeaway here in these first couple days? Anything that's really standing out to you so far?
Well, yesterday's testimony just is a whole new trial. Everybody now gets what the trial's about. I'm very impressed, and I hope some of the observers understand that we really do have a great system. The judge is patient. The Constitution is confining us. The lawyers are serving the jurors. The jurors are at the edge of their seat. Ultimately, unlike any other country, we have to have this examination, this cross-examination, and we turn to the jurors and they decide. I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. Now, what does work mean? It means the jury will follow the law. The law is beyond a reasonable doubt. We have to presume Michelle innocent, but they're going to hear evidence about the black bags. There's stuff that makes this a good faith prosecution.
Yeah. Yeah, and that jury, boy, as far as evidence goes, exhibits, testimony, there is a lot for them to absorb, but it sounds like it's being laid out, in your opinion, for them pretty clearly so far.
And this last witness, the star witness, Nanny, she sort of represents all of us because she's watching and reporting sort of chronologically as if we're reliving that whole experience. And the prosecutor's doing a good job making everybody feel like they want to protect Jennifer. That's their job. They're supposed to make us feel that way. Now, at some point, you've got to switch and focus on, well, what was Michelle thinking when Fotis is always presenting his best self? And we can see how we can switch on a dime.
We sure can. Jim, thank you. Appreciate your insight. As always, that wraps up our exclusive Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis streaming special. You can watch the trial live on our streaming channels when court starts around 10 a.m. And we'll have live coverage on NBC Connecticut starting with the news at 4. Be sure to join us weekdays at 9 a.m. for more in-depth analysis of the trial as it continues to unfold. Thanks for watching.